Some people fall apart when their plans fail. Others get angry as if God made a mistake. But what if failure isn't the end, but the beginning? What if what you call going wrong is exactly what's pushing you toward what's right? Most people think that when life slips out of their hands, everything has gone wrong. But the truth, and it might sting, is that sometimes things go right because they got out of your hands. There's a higher plan unfolding behind the scenes. It doesn't ask for permission, doesn't warn you ahead of time, and doesn't send a sign. That's when panic sets in. Because we want clarity before trust. We want certainty before surrender. But in this video, you'll see what no one talks about. That the very frustrations you complain about may be the protections you will thank God for tomorrow. And that just might be the turning point you didn't know you needed. To live lighter, more aligned, and finally stop chasing the wind. There are times when we sit down, open our notebook or spreadsheet, and plan everything down to the tiniest detail. Goals, deadlines, action steps. That sense of control brings temporary relief, as if life will simply follow along. But there's a catch. Real life doesn't obey our calendars. How often does something seem so right and still fall apart without warning? It wasn't poor planning. It was an intervention from a higher plan. It's like running two GPS systems at the same time, yours and God's. On your screen, every turn seems logical. On his, every turn has meaning. And those two things don't always match. You might think getting that dream job at 30, buying a house in the suburbs, or launching your startup this fall is a plan. And maybe it is by your standards. But what if the perfect timing you're banking on ends up leading you straight into burnout or debt? That's where the divine reroute kicks in. Funny how it's only after the crash that we realize what didn't happen may have been what saved us. It wasn't delay, it was protection. Sometimes losing a job prevents burnout. Canceling a project avoids a hidden loss. And while we keep pressing buttons, there's a wiser hand guiding the tracks, which is exactly what we'll unpack next. Some people believe being in control means being strong, that the more decisions you make, the further you'll go. But the truth is, life isn't like driving a car where you pick every turn. It's more like operating a train. You can speed up or slow down, but the tracks are already laid out. That changes everything, because you might be giving it your all, but if you're on the wrong track, pushing harder won't take you where you're meant to go. It's like someone who starts a business just because it's trending, even though it doesn't resonate with them. They invest, work hard, even make some money, but something's off. Why? Because the track is pointing in another direction. In this journey, the real move isn't to go faster. It's to pause and ask, is this truly my path? If the answer is, I'm not sure, then that's already a starting point. Seek alignment before chasing momentum. What changes your outcome isn't how hard you pull the lever. It's the direction of the track. And realizing that relieves a lot of unnecessary frustration. You don't need to compete with everyone or constantly prove you're in control. Sometimes, the wisest move is to acknowledge there's an invisible path guiding it all. And your role is to trust, adjust, and move forward. And once you see that clearly, even the sound of the tracks starts making sense. There are moments when life takes such an unexpected turn, you're left thinking, this wasn't supposed to happen. But what if it was exactly how it needed to be? So many people follow their plan with full conviction, thinking they're in control until everything flips upside down. It's not bad luck, it's divine redirection. That frustration that feels like punishment is often God's way of pushing someone into something far greater than they ever planned. Saul had status, influence, and a mapped-out life, but he was stopped abruptly and completely. That breakdown wasn't the end of his road. It was the start of a mission that changed the world. Sometimes God tears down what you built, not to embarrass you, but to relocate you. And the truth is, the more spiritual a person becomes, the easier it is to confuse purpose with spiritual habits. And that brings us to a question most people don't dare to ask. Why do so many spiritual people struggle to prosper, even with faith, purpose, and good intentions? Could there be a key piece missing from the puzzle? By the end of this video, you'll discover the real reason behind it, and it might change how you see your path from now on. Just a heads up, the link pinned in the first comment contains insights most people avoid. But before we go there, we've still got powerful lessons ahead, and the next one might be your turning point. Picture this. Everything's ready, paper signed, keys almost in hand, that feeling of this is it. The excitement of a dream coming true is one of life's sweetest highs. But when it all falls apart suddenly, there's that gut punch question, why would God allow this? In moments like that, it's hard to see past the loss. But what feels like frustration is often a disguised rescue from pain you haven't even seen yet. Some see it as punishment or bad luck, but it's quite the opposite. When things fall apart at the last second, it could be God saying, you want this, but I got something better, like a couple devastated over losing their dream home, not realizing that their true place was just ahead, with more space, more peace, and less debt. The issue is we get so attached to what we imagine, we can't see what God intends to deliver. God's plan rarely comes with a preview. It only unfolds when we let go of control. As uncomfortable as a not now may feel, it often protects us from choices that seem perfect but weren't. When you learn to trust even when things don't make sense, you find that even delays can lead to the right destination. And speaking of delays that save, the next part will make that even clearer. Most of our deepest frustrations don't come from what others did. They come from what we insisted on doing without checking the right direction first. How many times has anxiety spoken louder than peace? You felt you shouldn't go, but you went. Something told you to wait, but you rushed. Then comes the infamous, I knew it. Trusting God's plan means giving up the need for immediate answers. In return, you gain the peace of knowing you're on the right path, even when everything feels uncertain. It's natural to make decisions based on what makes sense right now, but the now can't see the later. That's why trusting God isn't passivity. It's emotional intelligence, like someone who turns down a job that looks great on paper, simply because deep down they know it's not aligned. Trust builds discernment, and discernment saves us from painful detours. Someone who trusts doesn't jump from one plan to another, doesn't run in circles trying to force results. They move with quiet confidence, even when the world around them is shaky. And no, that doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, a daily training of faith. But once you learn to walk like that, frustration loses its grip. What once felt like a breakdown now becomes a breakthrough. And speaking of that shift in perspective, let's dive deeper into it next. Failure isn't the end, it's a warning. And the strange part is, it often shows up right when everything seems to be going well. You know that this is going too perfectly to go wrong feeling? Well, sometimes it does go wrong because it looked perfect. The plan was polished, but it wasn't aligned. It was efficient, but not eternal. And God, who sees the end from the beginning, steps in before the damage multiplies. You invest, work hard, promote it, and still it stalls. Nothing flows. It's not a lack of talent. It's a lack of alignment. And as painful as it is to admit, failure is often an invisible sign saying, not this way. Have you noticed how some paths just keep getting heavier when they're not meant for you? The pressure builds, energy drains, and it feels like rowing against a spiritual current. What was supposed to feel light becomes a burden. That's a major sign of misdirection. But when you learn to see failure as divine notification, everything shifts. Instead of blaming yourself or quitting, you start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That mindset turns setbacks into a map. Even the wrong turns begin to serve a purpose. And speaking of purpose, how we respond to life's no's says a lot about the direction we're really heading. Hearing a no from God can hurt more than silence, especially when you've already grown attached to the idea, the project, the person. But over time, you realize that every divine no carries a hidden yes, one that leads to something bigger, safer, and more lasting. Today's no might be saving you from tomorrow's collapse. God doesn't block you out of cruelty. He protects you out of love, but often, that only makes sense in hindsight. Remember that opportunity that seemed perfect but slipped away, or the relationship that ended without warning. If you push forward, maybe you'd be dealing with way more painful consequences today. God, no, is like a fence that keeps you from falling into a pit. Accepting that takes spiritual maturity. It takes understanding that it's not just about feeling peace. It's about obeying even when peace hasn't arrived yet. Those who learn to thank God for the no's live lighter, not because they avoid pain, but because they understand the purpose behind it. God's no is never punishment, it's guidance. It's him saying, not now, not this way, not with that. And most of the time, that's what draws us closer to his will. Now that you've seen what changes when you stop resisting and start trusting, it's time to tie all this together into something that might change your life for good. Now that you understand failure isn't always the end, let me ask you, how long will you keep pushing plans that God already canceled? How long will you frustrate yourself by forcing paths that only drain you? Maybe what's holding you back isn't a lack of faith, but a lack of listening. It's not about trying harder. It's about aligning with the right direction. And you only find that when you stop running and start listening. So, what are you going to change today? Will you keep ignoring the signs, or finally surrender control and trust the process? Drop it in the comments. What decision do you need to make today to realign your life? Write it down, not just for yourself, but to inspire others who need the same push. And if this video gave you value, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. There's a lot more coming to guide you on this journey. Oh, and remember, if you've ever wondered why, even as a spiritual person, your life feels stuck, click the link in the first comment. That's where you'll find the answer no one else had the courage to give, but one that could flip the switch for good. Trust me,